But let's return in more depth now to what has been going on in South Korea and what could happen in the future with Professor Anthony Glees, security and intelligence expert at the University of Buckingham. Good afternoon to you, Anthony.
Good afternoon,
Thank
Julia.
you so much for joining us. I suppose I put this first question to you the same as I put to Benedict. You know, were you surprised by what happened yesterday? And really, secondly, can you just explain, talk us through what actually happened?
Well, what actually happened was that President Yoon, who is the elected president by popular vote along the lines of the US president, decided he'd had enough of the shenanigans caused by the opposition party, the Democrat Party, who control the National Assembly, so the Parliament. And he thought acting as strongman would help him bring order to the mounting chaos in South Korea. So, you know, you asked, was I surprised? I was certainly surprised that martial law, of all things, had been proclaimed in South Korea. It's a vitally important democracy in East Asia, and it plays a key role in the whole Asia-Pacific as probably the staunchest American ally in the region.
And now also, I mean, the US has a huge military base there as well.
Yeah, very, very many troops there, 30,000 fighting troops. And of course, the border between the free world of the West and the authoritarian and communist world runs through the border of North and South Korea. And add to this the fact that, as everybody now knows, the evil dictator of North Korea is supplying the evil dictator of Russia with up to 12,000 troops, could even be 100,000 troops in due course, to fight the odious war of aggression against Ukraine. So, you know, what started with shenanigans in the politics of South Korea, which surprised everybody, including President Biden, who was in Angola.
I think everything surprises President Biden, to be fair.
Well, he has certainly passed, Julia, to be perfectly honest, he has passed his sell-by date. Some people think he passed it some time ago. And in the very area where he was said to be, you know, the real expert, foreign policy, I'm afraid it's been a catalogue of failures.
Well, eye off the ball. Well, I wonder how significant it is to have a lame-duck president who's not got his eye on the ball, in this period, not just because, you know, we've seen the presidential, you know, election in November, but actually just the weakness that America has often portrayed it and sort of, you know, umming and ahhing on views, that actually that sent a message that this South Korean, you know, democratic ally could do such a thing. Because this thing is, it's such a significant country, you know, diplomatically and militarily and economically in that region. And what is extraordinary, though, is that democracy did work. You know, it did work on that day. What is extraordinary to see the people of South Korea going to the parliamentary building, the parliamentarians climbing in, you know, to over barricades to go into the building, to sit in session, to simply refuse to leave and to vote this down. But this could have turned out very differently, couldn't it?
It could have turned out in even more chaos. I think there still is chaos. The third day, there still is chaos in South Korea. That's very troubling. Latest reports say that President Yoon has disappeared and that his key defense minister has offered his resignation and other people have offered. So the government is in a state of shambles. Now, what's worrying is whether North Korea is going to use this as a way of taking a swipe at South Korea. And precisely because North Korea is supplying Russia with troops, Kim Jong-un may feel that Putin will allow him to take that swipe at South Korea. So, you know, when Sir Keir Starmer was speaking at the Mansion House a couple of days ago and saying, you know, there's dangers wherever you look in the world, he was taken by surprise too. He shouldn't have been. Of course, none of us should have been taken by surprise, certainly not our spooks. They should have known this was going to happen. But the whole thing is beginning to collapse because of this power vacuum, because of what Trump has said he will do to the world economy, but also to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, which almost certainly means ending it on Putin's terms. So there's this massive, freezing the conflict where everybody is. So Putin wants to have as much territory as he possibly can. And he's losing monumental amounts of troops.
3,000 troops a day being killed and severely injured. It's literally, people meant to the slaughter. It's quite extraordinary. But that's the thing. These things, we sort of think, well, this is a country on the other side of the world. What difference does it make to me? And everything's fine now. But these are signals about democracy. This year we had the largest number of democratic elections held around the world than ever before. And the spread of democracy is an amazing thing. But as I was saying on the show earlier, democracy needs to be protected every single day. You have to fight for it every single day and stand up for it every single day, because it can disappear in an absolute flash, and has done in a number of countries, and could have disappeared in South Korea overnight.
Well, absolutely. But we don't even need to look to South Korea, because, as you said, in France right now, we're facing a country in meltdown. A year of a vast number of elections, and none of them have gone the way people thought they would go.
Well, no, the experts thought they'd go.
Sakir has a huge majority, but it's a majority built on the rise of the Reform Party. It's not built on any great popular sympathy here in Britain for Labour. So wherever you look, there's instability. And the key lesson, I think, is that if you are weak, if you are confused, like President Biden was, domestically, he pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. It's the second turkey he's pardoned in recent days. He's kind of lost total control. And that vacuum looks like a space into which authoritarian dictators feel they can protrude.
And we can see that being exploited. Just coming back to France, which you touched on, we've not just got a political vacuum in France, got a political vacuum in Germany as well, Olaf Scholz's government, and we're seeing again and again, and we've been told so many years, didn't Britain do terribly because of Brexit? We had a bit of chaos for a bit, and Liz Truss a couple of years ago and the like. But actually, firm government where, even if it's government I don't agree with, like the Labour Party, they've got a big majority, they can actually get stuff. If they want to, they can get stuff done. Really does matter at a time when we have, the likes of Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, the Iranians, the North Koreans posing such a huge threat to the Western world and to our way of life. And actually these sort of civilizational battles really depend on there being strong people in office able to, garner the support of their people and their military.
You're exactly right, Julia. And the big question for people like me is whether Sir Keir Starmer, who hasn't, had a great deal to say about foreign policy before he became Prime Minister, can really step up to the challenge. Because in theory, the United Kingdom has probably become one of the strongest countries in the world because of the stability of the election, and one of the strongest countries in Europe. We need to spend far more on our armed forces. I think even Sir Keir recognises that now. But he needs to get cracking, because the moment you drop your guard, there are people out there ready to get you. And that's true for us. We are vulnerable to Putin. We're vulnerable to China. We're vulnerable to Iran. Look at what's happening in Syria right now. All kinds of people will flood to Syria if there's a so-called Islamic State. In Aleppo, equally, a lot of people will want to get the hell out of Syria and come to the UK.
So things that happen overseas a long way away has a horrible habit of impacting us here in the now.
The global, as Keir Starmer said at the Mansion House, the global has become local. That's our problem.
Absolutely. Anthony Glees, really good to talk to you. He's Professor of Security and Intelligence at the University of Buckingham. Thank you for that.